Now, just a few days before Joe Biden is expected to meet with President Xi Jinping in a high-stakes meeting, the U.S. National Security Advisor has said that President Joe Biden is likely to urge the Chinese president to restrain North Korea's worst tendencies. The security advisor has said that Biden will also inform Xi Jinping that North Korea's arms buildup will prompt an increased U.S. presence in Asia. The meeting is likely to take place on the sidelines of the G20 summit on the 14th of November. The National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan also said that Biden will not be making any demands of China. Instead, he'll be trying to give his perspective to the Chinese president. He also elaborated on Biden's perspective on North Korea, and according to him, Pyongyang represents a threat not just to the United States, South Korea and Japan, but also to the stability of the entire region. Sullivan said that what China chooses to do is now completely an independent choice that it will have to make. He also said that whether China wants to increase pressure on North Korea is entirely up to them. However, Sullivan further said that North Korea is in fact expected to test out a nuclear weapon pretty soon. They're also rapidly increasing their missile capabilities as well, and this has increased the urgency of the matter. Now, the US president will also not be meeting with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman during the G20 summit, and this will be the first time that Biden and bin Salman are going to be in the same place since the OPEC Plus oil cut announcement. The move, remember, had dealt a pretty hefty blow to the United States and had given a big boost to the Russians. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of how these high-level meetings are likely to play out, we're being joined by Su Young Oh, who's a journalist joining us live from Seoul. Now, Su Young Oh, this is an important and an interesting meeting which the American president is likely to have with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. We're given to understand that the issue of North Korea is likely to come up, but this is a meeting that is also taking place in the backdrop at a time when US and China's relationship seems to be possibly at its worst if we were to look at what has been unfolding in the Taiwan Strait. Now, give us a bit more in terms of what is likely to play out when these two top leaders meet.
Right, so the G20 summits, they provide a platform for these kind of talks to take place. And of course, we don't know as of now how, whether it's going to turn into an improvement in relations, a chance for a reset, possibly worsening of tensions, or even just maintaining the status quo. But of course, it's in the interest of both sides to keep the conversation flowing. However, in terms of real tangible progress or even a joint statement coming out of that meeting, expectations are pretty low on that point, because we have to remember there are fundamental differences between the two sides that aren't going to see a breakthrough in a single meeting. In many meetings even, differences on Taiwan, the ongoing trade war between the two sides, and technology, of course. So, and there's also been some disappointing progress on climate-related issues. So you mentioned North Korea, and indeed, North Korea and Ukraine are likely topics that will come up, according to National Secretary Advisor Jake Sullivan. Right. So those two things they could talk about, but the fundamental points unlikely to see a strong breakthrough.
All right. Now, very interesting there. Now, what is being speculated at this point of time is that it is being said that when Joe Biden meets with Xi Jinping, Biden would perhaps ask Xi Jinping to try and rein in North Korea. Do you think China, realistically speaking, has that kind of leverage on Pyongyang?
Well, actually, first, it's quite interesting that in your report, you said that Washington emphasized that it won't be making demands of China, but it's up to China whether or not it chooses to cooperate with the US in pressuring North Korea. But by conveying to Xi Jinping that if North Korea continues down the road of developing its missile and nuclear capabilities, then that would mean enhanced US presence in Asia. Now, that's pretty much a direct pressure on Beijing itself, because China sees US presence in the region as a direct threat to its security. So the US there is indirectly pressuring China here. And right. On your question on whether China has that leverage over North Korea, it does have some limited leverage, yes, because North Korea is very heavily dependent on China economically for its most of its trade, also its energy. However, North Korea really resents this. It resents its reliance on China and their history as well. Even stretching back to 50, 60 years ago, it's been filled with mistrust and resentment on both sides, really. So North Korea doesn't always do as China asks it to do. It likes to keep going down this independent path. So Chinese influence, while it's there, it's quite limited, and the Chinese are also aware of this.
Absolutely, indeed. And also, tell us a bit about how the South Koreans look at this crisis that is playing out in North Korea. Over the course of the last few weeks, what we've witnessed is an unprecedented spree of missile testing by the North. Now, it is quite clearly something that Pyongyang is trying to do to try and get the attention of Washington. That is not forthcoming. So how does South Korea view this crisis, and what is a possible solution to this?
Well, what is quite clear is that North Korea really wants to be recognized as a nuclear state, and that is something that is unacceptable for South Korea. We do not recognize North Korea as a nuclear state. Washington certainly does not, but North Korea wants to have that status for various different reasons, for the security of the Kim Jong-un regime, also to enhance the status of the regime internally as well to its many oppressed people, to really secure the legitimacy of its repressive governance. But Seoul, yes, basically, we see North Korea as launching these provocations in order to create disunity in the very strong South Korea-US alliance, and now a trilateral alliance with Japan as well. It's, of course, very wary of increased Japanese cooperation in the alliance too. So, yes, so there are various reasons that North Korea has been strengthening its, really showing off its capabilities in recent days. But resolving this is going to be tricky, of course, in the long run, because North Korea also, again, shows fundamental differences in how we are approaching these talks between the two Koreas, between Pyongyang and Washington, in terms of denuclearization.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Yoo Young-oh, for joining us from Seoul and getting us that perspective then.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.